G'day everybody, Matt Ellis with you for a brand new series of the Cricket Library podcast, and we're getting things underway with the man they call the frog in a blender, Paul Adams, iconic South African spinner who had a meteoric rise to international stardom in the 90s. He played 45 test matches for his country, and today we hear his story on the Cricket Library podcast. It's a very warm welcome to the Cricket Library podcast. Paul Adams, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for allowing me to chat. It's always good and nice just to reminisce.
We love reminiscing here on the Cricket Library, and so many good stories to tell. And one of the things we like to find out from our guests is the origins of your passion for cricket. You played 45 test matches, 141 first-class games, 24 ODIs, mountains of wickets in there. But the passion had to start somewhere. Can you tell us a little bit about where it all began for Paul Adams?
Yeah, I think it's most young kids start. It's in the backyard, and family and friends play a big role in that. I grew up in Cape Town in a suburb called Grassy Park, and we were very passionate about sport, and not just cricket. There was football, there was rugby, athletics. All of those things were quite involved in our household. I'm the youngest of, I've got 3 older siblings, and all of them were very sporty, in cycling, in various sporting codes as well. But the one significant thing was that my dad was a fisherman, which spent a lot of time away from home. He would almost go away for a month, come home for 5 days, and have to be off. But he made sure always when growing up that he was home during the summer months, take his leave, and sit along the side of the field and try and help take us to the cricket grounds. Sometimes act as a team driver where you have to fit in a whole lot of kids in a car and get the kids to the ground. But those moments are special ones, and they're the ones that really just sort of build that passion, that drive, and wanting to be on the cricket field and wanting to perform.
In Australia, a lot of us, when we grow up, we play backyard or front yard cricket. Is that something that you did with your siblings? Did you get out in the yard and play games with tennis balls and things like that with your family?
Yeah, exactly that. You put the rubbish bin out there as the wickets. Use stones as the other side there, and we play in the yard, or we would play as well street cricket, which is very much like the neighborhood. And you're playing the road, so if you hit directly into neighbors' yards, and that you're out, and you'll get the stories where you think, don't hit it into that neighbor's yard, she'll be making tennis balls, some tennis ball stew.
any vicious dogs in the neighborhood there?
Yeah, it was all fun. Yeah, no, plenty. So you got, you're making me think now back. You got to time it, get the ball, run. No, a lot of fun.
Now, when did you discover you could spin the ball? You've got this iconic bowling action that we all know and love. When did you think this is something I could be pretty good at?
Yeah, I started bowling spin much later. I grew up actually just bowling quick, fast with that action. And the story goes when I was about 10 years old, 11 years old, I was playing a game of cricket, and the gentleman just stopped the game and he said, why don't you hold the ball with your 3 fingers on it? The typical leg spinner's grip, and bowl slower. I never had access to knowing how I looked when I bowl or anything like that. I thought I was like every cricket player, any bowler, bowling with his head and bowling, and I was pretty accurate at a young age. So I journeyed along, sort of bowling spin, bowling seam, but still going towards the seam a lot more. So always very active in the game. But only at around the age of 16 or so, I really started focusing on spin. And that's where I also developed my unique grip, wanting to turn the ball away. It's just those years, there wasn't the internet. There wasn't all this access to footage and all of those things. So it was very much self-taught. And how I needed to bowl, how I needed to take wickets, how I had to go about it, and be accurate. So it was quite a journey for me, going about bowling spin.
And lots of hours of trial and error. Did you find that you'd mess around with different ideas and then you got onto something that worked for you?
Yeah, those trial and errors always happen in the backyard with a tennis ball. So, and I think you'll listen to a lot of spinners that have played international cricket, especially guys who did different things with the ball. They'll tell you their base started either bowling with tennis balls, figuring out different things. And for me, it was the same. In the backyard playing games with my brother, how to get him out, otherwise he'll bat the whole day. And it just made it a big challenge for me, So and that was probably where the building of character and always wanting, can I figure it out? Can I get something different? Going to take him out.
Yeah, God bless our older brothers. They, I know I did lots of bowling to my big brother in the backyard, and the same kind of thing. You just want to have a bat and do whatever you can to get a turn with the willow. Now you're very young when you burst into first class cricket. What was that progression like?
Yeah.
Into the first class ranks?
Yeah, it's sort of, they labeled it the season of magic. So if I take it back, I was in my, well, we call it now grade 12, back in 94. So I got out of school and so the year of 95 was, Mom asked me, are you going to study? Are you going to, what you going to do with your life, beyond school? So I said, look, I've been invited to go to the Western Cape Cricket Academy, which is there in Cape Town, and it was run by Eddie Barlow at that stage. And I wanted to give cricket a go and see where I ended up for the next year, and see where it takes me. And this was when it was opportunity coming around. It was unification happened a few years before within South Africa. So it was a lot of energy and a lot of excitement around sport, especially South Africa winning also the Rugby World Cup in 95. So the nation was quite energized around sport and that. So that winter went along in the academy, went on some winter tours with Eddie Barlow and we played against some first class teams up north, up in Joburg, Pretoria. And through that, I think my name got onto the map sort of I was in and around maybe there was a possibility for me to be playing for the province side. But look, that was a lot of talk happening in the background. I was not aware of this. And we played our first game, club cricket. I picked up 8 wickets. And then the next weekend I got picked in the sort of the provincial B side to go along and play. And the next week, I'm getting a phone call. I'm picked in the A side to go play alongside your Eric Simons, your Gary Kirsten, your Craig Matthews, and all of them play alongside them in that team. And I'm like, wow, okay, that's been quick.
It's a very
obviously they saw something different.
It's a very quick progression, and in that game against England, 4 wickets and then 5 wickets.
Yeah, that was sort of this was before that first class game. That was after actually.
Oh, okay.
So I played that for my first game. Yeah, I played my first game for Western Province. Picked up a 6-wicket haul in the second innings. And while we were busy, I was looking up the scoreboard. They're announcing the South African A side to play against England. And my name's on the board. And I was, wow, sheesh, no. First of all, I haven't really travelled that much. Next thing, I'm flying off to Kimberley as well to go play against England, against Graham Mick, Alex Stewart, Darren Goff. I was like, okay, this is exciting stuff here. Getting to that game, that's where I took that 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And the A side won the game against England, and that's where it just went crazy. I think the English media, who's this kid? Where's he come from? And people just became so aware about me as a player and someone being very different, taking wickets. It just created a frenzy around the country.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're fairly new to this kind of thing. You're very young. You're in the mix. Were you looking up to a lot of these guys? Are these guys you'd been watching on television? And did you ever dream that you'd be sending a few down to these guys? And not only sending them down, but sending them back to the sheds?
You know, I sit back and I only when afterwards that all happened, you sit back and you think, yeah, what just happened? Because it all became a very blur. Things happening quickly for me, because I was quite a quiet guy in the dressing room, or just in general very quiet, and only later on you think about what impact you had and how quickly you got into the position of playing in the first class team and that rise to play alongside those players. Because I'll tell you now that if you went back to that time, you go to my bedroom, and there was posters actually of all those players that were sitting on my bedroom wall that we used to get from the magazines, and they were all around in the room. So that visuals were always there to play and look up. And you know, it's also the time when Shane Warne came on the scene. He was a big inspiration for me to go with, but to take up the spin bowling and sort of bamboozle batsmen more and try and be like that, you know. So it has a big impact I think in young cricketers' lives when you have that visual and sort of imagining yourself playing on those fields, and all of a sudden for me at 18 it happened so quickly.
Yeah, and then so you play that game, you get your 4 and 5 wickets, and then the call-up comes to make your Test debut at Port Elizabeth. In that series as well, Sean Pollock makes his debut, I think, in the first Test.
Yeah.
Jacques Callis in the second Test.
Yeah.
I think there was a game there, Mike Atherton batted for hours on end in one of those games there. And do you think that aspect of South Africa wanting to try and win a Test match, there'd been a few draws early in the series, do you think that played in your favour in terms of the opportunity coming so quickly?
Yeah, very much. Because of it's sort of, I kept taking wickets, and people, the media and all of them were putting pressure on the selectors and SA side that there's someone here that can maybe take out the English. He did it in one game. We haven't won any of the games yet. It's a historic series. He has an opportunity to play the young player and give him that scope to try and make an impact for the nation. You know, a lot of people say, "Do you think it was too early? And would you have been a much better cricketer if you just sort of laid it down?" But, you know, sometimes fate and the opportunities come and you think, and you go back and you think, there must have been another reason why they played me. Something must have happened. And I think that moment was that it almost like the country needed something different again, needed someone to inspire young people to believe that they can achieve, come out of a small suburb where within a year you had no idea that you were going to walk out onto the field, but through belief and through your energies of positivity and wanting to achieve all the time, that you can go out there. And our youth in the country was crying out for that. And a lot of people think, you would have been a better cricketer. But I always think back, look, you can't take things back, and the moments were there, and I went out fully and just wanted to enjoy it, you know. Look, there was it's a big moment when that all happened. The big call-up happened quickly. But I look back and, won't change a bit, won't change a thing how I went about it.
Do you remember how you heard the news?
Yeah, we were playing a game down at Newlands, and it was actually rain delayed. So was walking around the ground. They were still clearing up the field. And sort of one of the teammates came out to changing room, and I was out on the field kicking a football around and that, and shouted, "Jorge, you in the squad? You in the squad?" My nickname. And that's how it got announced there. Back in the day, it was either announced via the news and not now a media post or anything. There wasn't a phone call. We were busy with a game. There was no cell phones to phone you directly. So we found out like that.
Oh, that's so good. Now you come into that team. You get some wickets in the first game. Graham Thorpe, Mike Atherton, a couple of the big ones in there. Hansie Cronje is your captain. What are your recollections of coming in under Hansie? He had a bit of an aura about him at the time. Can you reflect back on what it meant to you to come into that team and what you remember of Hansie's leadership?
Look, as a player before that, just watching Hansie as a young cricketer, just watching him leading the South African team was quite big, and you could sense that he was someone who demanded the respect and also led in a way where he kind of got to know each player and what made them tick. You'd make a point of spending time with each individual. But also he's one of his key things was his work ethic. So he wanted that work ethic to really rub off onto the team and that. So, and to show the guys that nothing comes easy, you got to make sure you got put the yards in your skill, in your fitness, or fielding. You'd really just pull the troops together in that sort of way. And that's where you get a lot of respect for him as a person. And look, it was unfortunate how his life went about towards the back end. But look, a lot of players who played under him had a lot of respect for him, just on how he would go and how he was dedicated towards his game and towards his fellow teammates.
And were there any other players in the squad that when you came in you thought, oh, these guys made me feel at home, or they made it easier for you to transition into Test cricket? Any reflections on players who helped you in the early stages?
Look, the young players were very good. Sean Pollock was quite young into it, but a very mature head as well. I knew Jacques from playing against him at school. So we would also very rally amongst each other and sort of spend a lot of time at that stage. Because after that series, we went to the World Cup, so it was also one of my first overseas tours and all of those things. So there was a lot of those going on, with spending a lot of time with the young players. But guys like Dave Richardson really also sort of took me under the wing as the wicketkeeper was an important one in terms of guiding, of having that relationship, what pace, what sort of thing, what game, how we're going about the strategy, all of those. And Hansie, so those key players were.
You had a good batting partnership with Dave Richardson as well, didn't you? In your second test, that was an enjoyable one. Being not noted for your batting, can you indulge us and tell us a little bit about that time at the crease with Dave Richardson, where you really you really got under the skin of the England players?
Yeah, not many people knew about my batting, even the teammates. So when I got to Dave, when I walked up and he just said, "Look, just try and hang in there with me." I said, "Don't worry, I got it covered." So and that's how I batted all the time. I think all the time through. It's sort of reading the situation, what is required, and play for your partner in that sort of sense. And the one thing that stood out was I think they got distracted in trying to take me out instead of pull me out. and it allowed Dave and that just to bat longer and sort of get the scoreboard ticking as well, So, and there was some free runs on hand as well when guys kind of get distracted from what they need to do and lose focus, you get some free balls that you can score.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that sounds like that would have been some good fun. It's always fun for the batting team when the tail wags.
Yeah, and it was because when I walked in, the game was quite even. We were almost like there was no lead really on. All of a sudden, we put on 73 or 74 run lead. That just sort of just gave us a lot of confidence and put the English team under pressure. And then Polly came in the second innings and he blew them away with the ball. So, and that just, we had to go knock down some runs, 100 runs, I think. So it was quite a good win, and that was a series win for us.
Yeah. Yeah, you get a series win in the tests, and then the one-day internationals are something like 6-1 as well in the home series there before the World Cup. And the World Cup started really well. In your group games, South Africa, everything tracking really well, and then unfortunately in the quarterfinals you bow out. What are your reflections on that time at the World Cup? Were you feeling the pressure of the occasion for a young guy, or was it just enjoyable to be on your first overseas tour?
Yeah, as I said, it was my first trip overseas, and where to go? India, and we were in Pakistan.
Yeah.
So it's quite different to what it is now. It was quite a big eye opener about how people live and how people are really passionate about the game. I got to, especially at the opening ceremony, meet a lot of more of my heroes there as well. Wasim Akram, Shane Warne, Waka, Yunus, met them all there as well at that opening ceremony. So for me, it was quite exciting and getting to mix with the best players in the world, But if I think back, we were rated as one of the top teams as well for that tournament. We had a good record going into it. The squad was quite excited. We gelled nicely. We prepared well. However, like for me, from a personal point of view, it was a sort of a time where I thought I could have played a lot more. They almost used me as a cricketer for surprise moments, in key big games. We don't want to show them what I can do and all of those, and sort of hide me. But if you just think back, if you look at how cricket goes, you make sure you're playing those best players so they can get into their rhythm, get into their games. But for me, it was, I was 18. Do as you're told type of way, and make sure you knuckle down when those opportunities come, So I never got to play against your Hollands or your UAEs and all of that. I was up against Pakistan and in that quarterfinal. Yeah. So pressure moments all the time put on me to play. But look, I thought I performed admirably in those games. It was a great experience for my side, but unfortunate how the result went towards the end.
Yeah, not the way you want the campaign to finish, but it sounds like a really valuable learning curve for you as well, getting the opportunity to play some of those big moments as well. Now, you go and as a 19-year-old, you take a 6-for in a test match, and that's against India, and we're looking at Tendulkar, Dravid, Azharuddin, just to name a couple. Tendulkar, one of the greatest we'll ever see in my lifetime. Can you reflect on what it meant to you to get a big bag against some of the best players of spin on the planet?
Yeah, so leading up to that game, we were. I was asked by Hansie, he said, look, why don't you bring something different to the game? If you take a wicket, do a sort of a flick-flack somersault. I don't know if you ever watched the clips of those 6 wickets. I took the first wicket, did my flick-flack. I didn't know I was going to do 6 of them at the end. So that was the fun bit, but it's like playing a test series, because I flew over just for the test series. I like, especially the first test we lost in Ahmedabad. I think I arrived like the day or 2 days before that test match into India. and said, "Look, you're playing. It's going to turn and get in there." So, and then Kampur was good to me in sense of taking wickets in the sixth for. But on that tour, the big occasion was actually playing in Eden Gardens and winning there. That's where. So Azharuddin smashed 100 in like 70 odd balls. That was the loudest noise I ever heard at the cricket stadium.
Yeah.
But then I got him out and it just went silent again. It's amazing playing out there. So it's just a special time. It was my first fifer in Test cricket as well, which made it quite cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and a pretty good season, the 96-7 season. I think 27 Test wickets in that season there, and things were looking really good for you. And I just wanted to ask you about how you sort of managed being sometimes in the team, sometimes out of the team. You touched on it at the World Cup, how you felt you had limited opportunities. You also had some injuries in your career as well. Can you kind of reflect on looking back and thinking the lack of continuity you had from being in sometimes and out at others, and what that impact had on you?
Yeah. I sometimes joke about it in saying that I'm probably one of the most kept 12 men in world cricket. You know, along with Paul Rifle as well. He also sat a lot on the sideline, catch the odd game during a tough period to try and get into a team. But in my one was more of, catching a game at the end of a series when there's nothing really to play, get an opportunity. Only really later in the 2000s where I started sort of looking at me as the leading spinner, getting in there. So it was very a stop-start all the time situation in my cricketing career, especially at international level. And I felt that for me to have grown would have been get a lot more continuity, which I think in this day and age, they think more along that line, get more opportunity into players, giving that area for them to grow, and allowing them. But you also require that squad around you, to kind of just make sure they're looking after that sort of skill. Make sure you're bowling in the right moments. Make sure you're in the right surfaces when you're going to play and all of those things. So there's a lot more detail that goes into the thinking in these days around the games and things. So, yeah, if you think back, that's why now as a coach, you think back on those things and you try and make sure you create an environment that is more growth-orientated towards cricketers.
And do you think as well, being a spinner, you need to feel like your captain's backing you, your coach is backing you, and they've got full confidence that you're going to do a job? You had a number of different captains over your time. I think you would have played under Sean Pollock, you would have played under maybe even Mark Boucher and Graham Smith, as well as Hansie. Did you find that they all had their own different way of getting the best out of you?
Yeah, each one was very different in how they managed and how they went about their captaincy. So it was quite important of getting that relationship. And that's probably one of the better advice you can give any young cricketer, is make sure you're always working on your relationships around the leadership within the team. Bowling spin is enough, is hard enough, So making sure they're on the same page with you and how you're thinking and how you think it's going about in that moment and those stages within a game is important. And you have to talk about the game, It's not where you're going to be finding players like Warren and Bullet dropping out of the sky, and you got to really work on game plans where they have to construct the way how they can bowl pressure. Is the wickets conducive for you, and how we're going to approach it in that sort of way. So each one probably was a different way of approach. Some allowed you to take care of everything, allowed you to take control of your game, and some wanted to control your own game. without communicating really on how they needed to go about it. But that's all part and parcel of cricket. I always say cricket is like life, you know. If you aren't really prepared for the ups and downs and things, then yeah, you're gonna learn the hard way about it. So it's an incredible sport that you can go through, and how to manage it is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And you speak about the highs and the lows. We'll talk about another one of the highs, the 10-wicket match against Bangladesh, 2003. Bit of a day out for Jacques Rudolph and Boda Dippenaar. They peeled off plenty of runs with the bat, so you had plenty to bowl to. But the 5 for 37, followed by 5 for 69 against Bangladesh. Any reflections on that match?
We can help you spend less with our lowest price since 2019 on our individual sausage 600-gram packs.
Yeah, geez, first 10-wicket all for me. Playing in Chittagong, it was quite an experience, you know. Bangladesh is also a cricket crazy place, and for me to come in, I think the fifer was the first one was okay, cool. We got it. We got some big runs on the board. Then that sort of set up for me to really get into them. They were under pressure in that sense, and weren't quite sure how to go about playing me. So it's and picked up that fifer to win the game for the team, you know. So I know man of the match went to Jacques Rudolph for his 200, but picking up it, I could have given it 2 pounds. but it was, yeah. It was good fun to go out there, and it was like one of our first tours as well to Bangladesh.
Is there a better feeling as a spinner doing the job for your team in the second innings and skittling a team out like you did? Is that the epitome of what you set out to do as a spin bowler in Test matches?
It's an amazing feeling, you know. And I would make jokes in the changing room, especially with Lance Klusner. He'd come to me and he'd say, "Look, we're here on day 4 and 5. It's the last innings," and he'll say, "Here's the key." Almost like, here's the key to the engine. You're the engine, though. You must drive the car. You're the key. And say, it's not left up to the Seabers here. You're the man for the job. Here we go. No pressure, son. So, but it was all fun, you know. You got to understand that when conditions are in your favor, you want to do it, you know. You train for it, you prepare for it, you know, and your contribution becomes massive towards the win. Even if it is small or it's big, but when you do it in the final innings and you bowl it team out, it's an amazing feeling for a spinner to achieve that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you don't retire from cricket, I think, till probably around October 2008. What was the transition like for you out of playing? You get into some commentating, you're doing some coaching as well. What was it for you that was the key deciding factor to sort of say, okay, I'm ready to move on to the next thing? And how has that move been for you?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Back in 2008, it was a period where people talk about the mental side of the game and mental health of the game. I was sort of a period where I was just hating playing the game. It was like hating. I just gave it a thought, like in saying, why am I playing cricket? I'm not playing for why I started the game. I'm just hating every moment going out. What am I trying to prove? I'm putting myself under so much pressure to get out there and you always got to take it back to why you actually started the game. That love, and that was tough to get towards, you know. So it sort of was eating me away. And with chatting to my wife and family, I just sort of decided and said, guys, look, let me transition. Let me see if I can stay within the game and get that passion of transferring my knowledge or getting involved in the game. So that's where I started branching out. I actually worked in the cricket office here in Western Province as a club scorecard logger onto the internet, sort of on their website. Sort of all the scorecards would come in from club cricket, and log that onto the website, so they can all view all of those things. I worked in there. Then I was assisting Eric Simons in the nets. He was the Western Province coach by then.
Yep.
And then I was also doing a bit of commentary. So I sort of was people allowed me opportunities within different spaces within the game. And gave me opportunity to grow in certain spaces. And I found myself a lot more in the nets with the coaching, and then through that going to my different coaching levels, and then journey through that from going from academy, going towards coaching the Cape Cobras franchise team for over 5 years, and then moving through all different areas within coaching, from the youth back into where you're developing players and all that, growing players, young players into trying to play for professional cricket.
Do you have any, now that you are coaching, you're just sort of saying how you got to that point in your own playing career where you were just putting lots of pressure on yourself and had lost the essence of why you started playing the game, that passion for the game that you had when you're playing at Grassy Park and you're just loving it. How do you communicate to your players now as a coach to help them to make sure that they're loving what they're doing and keeping them on track with why they started playing the game themselves?
Yeah, I think that's a very important point. It is spending that moments where you can connect with your player, be it something about them on the game, on the cricket field, or it can be something that's off the cricket field, and there are moments where I've had experiences where a player would be underperforming on the field, and it had nothing to do about his skill, his talent, or anything. And we found out that it was off-field distractions that was happening. The moment we sorted that out, the player is actually on the brink of playing for South Africa. So it's amazing how it could turn around on a player, how his life could just move on. But it's finding that those key moments within cricketers' minds, because when you sit there just as a player, you just revolve around your own self. You're only focusing on yourself. You won't sometimes be vulnerable and talk to someone outside that can assist and help, because you feel that might jeopardize your place in the team, or if you're vulnerable in that sort of sense. So it's making sure that your players are comfortable and talking to them and open about various aspects within their life. And that takes time, It just doesn't say, okay, I'm coach now, you must talk to me. It takes time to build that relationship and to build that trust.
Absolutely. Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to you share your story with us. And there's just one question before we go. Now, this is a very popular question with our guests. We like to ask, if you had the chance to have a net session, sometimes these questions get asked if you could have anyone over to dinner, but being a cricket podcast, we really need to know who you want to have at the nets. Now, like you played through an era, someone like Alan Donald, I don't know whether you'd want him at the nets because he'd probably scare the wits out of you. Someone like him, but he might be a really good bloke and you might want to just hang out with him anyway and maybe get him in to bowl some bumpers to someone you didn't like. I don't know. But are there three people that Paul Adams is going to invite to the nets to hang out, play a bit of cricket and just enjoy each other's company?
Yeah, right. Look, I think it's important that you look at people that influence your life and along the journey. But firstly, I'll probably invite Tupac Shakur and teach him about cricket. He was a big influence in my life. I know he was about rapping and all of that stuff, but I think he influenced a lot of people in their lives and about how they can think about it.
Yeah.
So he'll be the first one, and I'll give him some coaching. Use that sort of skill as well to help him along. The second one would be Mr. Nelson Mandela.
Oh,
He'll be sitting there on the side, under umbrella, and just cheering everyone along and doing his Madiba dance. And then the third one would be the battle between me and Shane Warne all the time. And I'll have Warney in the nets and he'll bat against me and I'll have a bowl to him and I'll try and reverse sweep him again.
See if you can get that big belly laugh out of Warney like you did when you reverse swept him. Oh.
Yeah.
just on that reverse sweep. I
think I was a bit ahead of my game then.
Because you tried playing that reverse sweep in the previous test, hadn't you? It's not the first time you'd played that reverse sweep. Was it premeditated to try and unsettle Warney?
Actually, it goes. Bob Woolmer was the coach. And I sat upstairs with him and I was talking. I said, look, Bob, I'm not picking a thing here when he bowls to me. I don't know which way. I'm good at the sweep. And I think I'm fancying myself with the reverse sweep. I've got to find a way I'm going to score. So that's how it came. He just said, well, go ahead. That's what he said, So, look, I pulled it out a few times. I think there was a game in Sydney in the night game as well. I played a few shots there as well. So, but the funny story is actually we played here in Cape Town. I think it was in 2001 or 2, somewhere there, series, and I'm batting again in the partnership. So I've walked in and Warney's bowling and punter, Ricky Ponting, all they're sitting at silly point. They're saying, "Don't worry, Warney, the reverse sweep's coming now. Don't worry, it's coming now." And Gillies, and I kept looking at him, and he kept bowling, and I blocked, but then he threw one up and I slug swept it for 6. And my reply was, well, guys, if I can hit that way for 6, I wouldn't go for the reverse sweep anymore. Thanks. It's not coming.
Oh, I love it. Oh, that must have been
a bit of fun.
Oh, very good feeling. Well, thank you so much for sharing the last little while with us, Paul. I thoroughly enjoyed watching you as a cricketer, and it's been a real privilege to talk to you and listen to your story. And I dare say all our listeners would think the same way. And we thank you so much for being a guest on the Cricket Library podcast.
Yeah, always great to reminisce, especially, everyone keeps safe. It's a tough stage in the world at the moment, but good to talk about all good things back in the day. But there's a reality out there that everyone must just keep safe. Thanks, guys.
A massive thanks to Paul Adams for joining us on this edition of the Cricket Library podcast. A massive thanks to you too, our listeners, our loyal listeners who tune in and help us to keep telling these stories that inspire a love of cricket. And what an inspirational story this one was from Paul Adams. Growing up, playing cricket in Grassy Park, learning the game, and then being propelled onto the big stage, having an early impact in first-class cricket and progressing into the Test cricket arena and forging a very successful career, 45 Test matches for his country, 24 one-day internationals, and 141 first-class games as well. Playing under the captaincy of Hansie Cronje, coming into Test cricket at the time when Sean Pollock and Jacques Kallis were making their way into the team. And how good were those net session selections? Tupac, Nelson Mandela and Shane Keith Warne. That'd be very, very interesting indeed. And we really appreciate Paul sharing with us on this edition of the program. We'll have plenty more of these conversations coming up, conversations that inspire a love of cricket, and we look forward to sharing more of them with you in the coming weeks and months. This has been Matt Ellis for the Cricket Library podcast. Bye for now.